Hello everyone, tomorrow is Good Friday, and on the 16th we are going to have a Libra full moon. It's quite interesting because it picks up a number of prominent placements in the chart. I'm going to show you in a minute. But if you consider full moons, which are always about completion, about finishing something, about arriving at something, at the same time, they are carrying, each full moon is carrying a large amount of tension because the two luminaries are opposite each other. And if you consider those oppositions in the year round, especially in temperate climates, in continental climates on the northern hemisphere, they are always opposite seasons. They represent opposite things in nature. In this case, the Libra moon, full moon, probably carries the greatest tension because Libra is about diplomacy, about compliance, about I am happy when you are happy. It's the only sign that is not a living entity. It's not a human being or an animal or a mythical being like the centaur. It's an object. It's an inanimate object, and that is why objectivity and aloofness and coolness is linked to the sign. Whereas its opposite, Aries, is a willful, energetic character. It's my way or the highway. So there's a huge discrepancy between the two, but you will find the same with each full moon. If you consider them, they are usually, of course, polar opposites because they occupy opposite placements in the sky. So here's the full moon moment for London on April 16th, 2022, at 19:55 in the evening. And as you can see, the London chart has the moon spot on the ascendant to the minute and the sun spot on the descendant. So in the London chart, you have this me or you energy included in the chart as well. And if you see, there's a very strong focal point on the ascendant and the moon. And as it is Libra rising, all the houses start with the opposite energy. Actually, there's one, actually two houses that are not like this because the midheaven is already in Leo. So Cancer and Capricorn are intercepted. Teresa, if you watch this video, this is an interception because you sometimes have a problem with it. So this is a very sharp interception because you have the third house in Sagittarius and the IC is already in Aquarius. Okay, let's take a look at the highlights. Sorry, I'm fumbling with my computer here. So the ascendant is has the moon there. And then you still have the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction, quite tight, but it's already separating. And then you have the sun on the descendant, and close by, behind the sun, you see the Pallas Athena Aries, very tight conjunction. So this full moon carries drastically altered outward circumstances and the need for wisdom. So just take a look at that. That's quite revealing. There's also an applying conjunction between Uranus and Mercury. In this moment, in this space-time moment, you see the sun and Mercury in separate signs, in different signs. This happens about 1/3 of the time. Usually 2/3 of the time you have the sun and Mercury in the same sign. And when you do have that, it signifies that your way of thinking and your communication are in resonance to each other. They are the same. In this case, you have a very egotistical ego development, Aries sun, and you have a slow, reserved, earthly communication, Taurus, Mercury in Taurus, which is coming up to Uranus at the same time. So there's a change and disruption involved as well. And there's another thing that is worth mentioning in this chart. The black moon late just left Gemini and entered Cancer. It's at 0 degrees. 14 or something, 12, so it barely went into Cancer. And for the next 9 months, the Black Moon Lilith will be transiting the sign Cancer. So that's a big shift in the pattern. Now let's take a look at the complex planetary picture at 25, 27 degrees of the signs. As you can see, there's an exact ground cross in the cardinal signs involving the ascendant, descendant, and of course the full moon. And you have Pluto in Capricorn exactly squaring this particular full moon. And opposite it, you have the dark moon Lilith, which is the acceptance of the curse. And to translate this cardinal ground cross, it means that the tension described by the full moon, which is, shall I fight or shall I use diplomacy? Look around the world, this is what's happening, is clashing with my need to transform the things as they are. And I don't care if you're going to curse me. I don't care. I'm not looking at the results or the consequences. I don't care for the consequences at all. At the same time, this ground cross is gets dissolved by Juno and Saturn in Aquarius. It's really the midpoint of these two that dissolves it. Here's a thing that I usually teach, and I hope you will understand. You do have the trine by Saturn to the moon because it is still within orb. I work with very, very tight orbs. So for me, a trine or a square only has 4 degrees, but this is within 4 degrees. So you have the trine, but configurations by definition have a much smaller orb, 1.5 to 2 degrees, and only 1 to 1.5 degrees if it's the angles. So if it's a non-resonant object, it's just a point in space, then it only has a 1 or 1.5 degree orb if it comes to planetary pictures. So here it's actually Juno that is closing this trine, but of course Saturn is also there. So this solution is intact. This is an air trine. There's also another trine, actually a water trine coming from the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction to the dark moon. And there is a third trine to Pluto, which is the Sedna-Pluto trine. Those who have seen my video on the 2022 forecast, you will remember that I was harping a lot and I was commiserating that this particular trine is not going to be exact to the minute this year. It's actually getting as close as 2 minutes of an arc, but it's not closing, unfortunately. And in karmic astrology, when we don't speak about a new energy pattern before it actually becomes exact. So this year, the 2022 only indicates that there might be some hope for the world, for the Earth. This is in Earth science. After all, simply because Pluto is bringing great transformations. And in Capricorn, it is trying to dissolve or to completely transform the rigid power structures of the world, about bloody time, I must say. And Sedna denotes creation through dissection. And in Taurus, it dissects there are harmony as well, but the monetary system and everything fake. You see, so I have great hopes for this. And actually, when we are going to look back next year, we may see some signs emerging already around this full moon that this is happening well. If you put away mainstream media and propaganda, which is very much pro-Ukrainian and very much against Russian, and again, I don't know, I should scream and cry for the fact that there are idiots out there who are trying to ban Tolstoy and Pushkin and Dostoevsky, cretins, and they are actually punishing ordinary Russians. It's ridiculous. But at the same time, the Russians are doing something very, very fundamental. So they are really vehicles of change, because if they are going to sell their petrol for ruble instead of dollar, there goes the petrodollar. You can kiss it goodbye. And there goes the American hegemony in the monetary market. So we are going to see some profound changes. Whether or not this is going to lead to a third world war, well, I can only quote to you a great man who said, I don't know what kind of weapons the third world war is going to be fought, but I know that the fourth world war will be fought with axes. So consider this, and I just hope that the powers that be are not going to trigger this third world war as it is, because it's going to be a nuclear war, and we can kiss it goodbye for good. I mean, our Earth and our well-being. Anyhow, so these are the solutions of this ground cross. And of course, there are two engines as well that are actually joined into a trapeze. Here is it. It's the moon ascendant, trined by the Saturn Juno. This is the base of the trapeze. There are two squares. The dark moonlit moon, okay, that's a cardinal square. Again, the curse upon our souls, let's put it this way, and or the people. And actually, don't get me wrong, my heart goes out for the Ukrainian people, okay, for the mothers and children that have to flee. And there's no reason for war whatever. I just keep telling you that things are not what mainstream media and mainstream politicians, liberal politicians, want us to see. That's all I say. Okay, here's the other square. The Juno-Saturn is squaring Sedna. This is an upcoming square. Actually, the Juno-Sedna is exact, and the Saturn is, of course, coming up to the exact square, which will happen this year. And also next year, I think. Again, I need to look at that in more detail. And then the insides of the trapeze are two quincunxes, Sedna, moon, you need to rearrange your soul, and dark moon, Juno, the acceptance of the curse in liaisons. And then the top is a sextile between the dark moon and Sedna. So that's the top of the stage. But it is also, you could break it up into two engines. There's a cardinal water engine, okay? And there's also a fixed air engine. Here's it. You can take a look at it. But the trapeze is more important than the two engines. It's always important when two engines are closed into a trapeze, because trapeze is always a stage. And here you see the transcendental celestial objects. In this particular chart, the moon is rising on the ascendant with astronomia. So this is an astronomical moment. The sun has Aten, the sun disk in Egyptian mythology, Gavain, the night, Socrates, the wise guy, and Cerberus, the dog, the three-headed dog who is guarding the gate of the underworld. That's all on the sun. And yes, news are guarded, and we need wisdom, and we need insight, and we need chivalry as well. The Pallas Athena Aries conjunction has Attila, the fighter, and Sisyphus, who is willing to do a lot of hard work, but it is usually in vain. The Jupiter-Neptune conjunction has Zeus, chief god, and Machab, which is the alpha star of Pegasus. And it usually symbolizes bright ideas coming up from jumping out of your head. Pluto has Tesla, the inventor, Nike, the euphoria of winning, of victory, Metis, the wisdom. She's the mother of Pallas Athena, by the way, and Amicus, the centaur who doesn't care for the profane in a profane situation, whether or not he should use a sacred object. He does. He grabs a candelabra and fights with it. So it's like, how can you do stuff in a dire situation? On Saturn, you have the asteroid Helio. Again, it's sun energy. The fixed star Sada Sud, which is the alpha star of, actually the beta star of Aquarius, denoting lucky of the luck. Lucky is of the luckies, something like this. It's a very lucky star. And then Algadi, it's the alpha star of Capricorn, steadiness, strength, and endurance is linked to that. So it's very telling that it is on Saturn. Actually, Saturn is on the fixed. We are going to talk about this in a minute because I put together a table for you. And thank you again for your kind words. And I'm glad that you like my videos, and I appreciate that you're watching them. And whenever you have a suggestion, just write me and I will try to incorporate it in my work. And then the dark moon, we haven't spoken about the dark moon. It has two asteroids, Vulcano and Aries. Iris is the personal messenger of Hera. It's the rainbow, and Vulcano is, of course, eruptions. And Procyon is a fixed star that is rising before Sirius, the brightest star in the heavens. And Procyon is it's heralding something, it's heralding curse. Interesting space-time moment. So here's the table I put together. Here are the orbital periods for all these various celestial objects. The asteroids, which are between Mars and Jupiter, the last personal and the first destiny planet, kind of linking personal levels to the destiny levels. There was a planet there that got just blown up, and now it's the asteroid belt. There are many asteroids. Some are just as big as a house, some are like a county, and their average orbital period is 4 to 4.5 years. Then you have the centaurs, and in karmic astrology we call these various types of objects, which are very different, concerning orbit and semi-major axis and even where they are in the solar system. We still call all these trans-Neptunians centaurs. It's easier because centaurs are a very important portion of karmic astrology because they talk about karmic wounds, how and where we received them, and whether they turned into phobias and all sorts of negative energies, or we were able to turn them into positive traits and ingenuousness. So that is why we use the word centaur for everything, whereas we of course know which region a certain celestial object belongs to and what it makes, and you know, that's why I put together this table. But at the same time, consider this a simplification, just the same simplification we use in ordinary traditional astrology when we speak about personal planets, Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, out of which 2 are luminaries. And of course, we are not idiots. We know that the Sun is our central star and the Moon is our satellite. We could still call them personal planets, because that's how we look at it through the lenses of astrology. So please allow us this usage to use the word centaur for everything. Anyhow, you have the inner Kuiper belt, and here orbit the real centaurs, which really got their names from centaurs in Ovid's Metamorphoses. You can read about them, and their average orbital period is between 24 years to 133 years. The 2 extremes are Okiro with 24 years of orbit, so it's a very fast-moving object, and Celerus, which has 133 years. Those are the inner Kuiper belt objects. Then you have the outer Kuiper belt, which is where the trans-Neptunian objects orbit, and also the Plutinos. The Plutinos, or little Plutos, have the same orbital period as Pluto, so they are in orbital resonance with Pluto, around 250 years. Some have 245, 49, 51, something like that. They're all Plutos, really. And the TNOs, the real trans-Neptunians, they are averaging 300 years, sometimes 280 to 310, but averaging 300 years, give or take a decade maybe. Then you have the scattered disk, which has objects we call scattered disk objects, SDOs. These are longer orbital periods, averaging between 600 years to 1500 years. So those are quite long already. And then you have the Oort cloud. At the moment, this is the farthest region of the solar system. And this is where the extreme trans-Neptunians or ETNOs orbit. Their orbital periods can be anywhere between 5,000 to 40,000 years. A couple of days ago, I presented you Alicanto, which has about a 6,000 year orbit. And about a month ago, I spoke about Leila Puhona, which has a 39,000 year orbit, give or take 5,000, something like that. But those are really extreme celestial objects. And we see them only because at the moment they are at perihelion, so very close to the sun. So they are visible, more visible because the sun shines on them. And also because anything close to the sun is moving much faster than when it is at aphelion, farthest to the sun. And then, so these objects, the asteroid and the centaurs, are all part of the solar system, but fixed stars aren't. They are part of the universe. They're not in the solar system. They don't orbit around the sun. They are suns themselves. They are the stars. From the Earth plane, when you look at them, actually they do have an orbital period, 25,920 years on average. This is the so-called Platonic year. And the reason for that is not because they are moving anywhere, it's because how we observe them from the Earth plane. After the Vela cataclysm, when the Earth got a big hit and the axis got tilted, that is after which we are doing this sort of movement on our axis, and that is causing precession. Okay, so that's the precessional year, and that's how the fixed stars are moving around us. It takes 72 years for them to travel 1 single degree, so they're not moving anywhere, and their orbit is perfectly even because they are not moving around a central sun. They are just moving in the universe, but we are observing them like this. Of course, not observing at all, because there's no way in hell that you can observe 1 degree every 72 years. Okay, so it's like, okay, you can measure it, but not observe it with your own eyes. So this is it. This is the Libra full moon right before Easter. I wish you happy Easter. Try to relax. Try to be with your loved ones. And happy resurrection, everyone. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.